Everybody knows that Pakistan lies to its teeth.
Would you mind me asking about your experience in the 1971 conflict?
We fought for 9 days and 9 nights, but we had no food, we had no water. We were drinking water from muddy ponds. We were scrabbling at abandoned huts for rice, and we survived. We were shocked. 3 brigadiers, 2 full colonels, 170 Pakistani officers, 290 JCOs, and 8,000 troops surrendered to us. By that time, we were 352.
So the same year, 1971, there was an unfortunate event that you had to go through, sir. There was a landmine that you came across and lost one of your leg. Would you like to share a little about that, sir?
So there was no medicines available. There was no instruments to cut my leg off. So I used the khukri to just... Anyone who says he's not afraid is either a liar or a Gurkha. The next war, there's going to be definite collusion between Pakistan and China. We must prepare for the worst.
Why did Pakistan attack us out of nowhere in 1965?
The basic problem is whether it was 47, 48, whether it was 62, whether it was 71, whether it is 99, is that we are in denial.
Today, we have the immense pleasure of speaking with a true legend of the Indian Army, Major General Ian Cardozo. Known for his extraordinary bravery, General Cardozo's career is the stuff of legend. From leading the Gurkhas in the Indo-Pak war to his famous incident of amputating his own leg with a khukri after stepping on a landmine during the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War, his story is one of unmatched courage, grit, and leadership under extreme adversity. In this conversation, we'll explore the deep history of military conflicts involving India, Pakistan, and China, and gain insights from General Cardozo on the crucial lessons learned from these wars. We'll also discuss the role of leadership in the military, the evolution of jointmanship between India's armed forces, and the broader impact of war on a nation's soul. Prepare for an inspiring conversation that not only honors the valor of our armed forces, but also looks ahead of the challenges of modern warfare. Without further ado, let's get started. Before we dive into today's conversation, I just wanted to take a quick moment. We looked at our analytics and noticed that 93% of you who watch our videos regularly aren't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying our content and want us to keep going with more insightful conversation, we'd really appreciate if you could take just a second to subscribe. It might seem like a small action, but it goes a long way in helping us grow and bringing even more amazing content your way. Thanks for your support. It means the world to us. Now let's get back to the video. So since the next year in 2025, we'll be celebrating 60 years of a war that we didn't ask for, the 1965 war against Pakistan. Let's bring some light into it and understand the implications and reason behind it. The first question to you is, sir, why did Pakistan attack us out of nowhere in 1965?
See, at that time, Ayub Khan, Field Marshal Ayub Khan, was the president of Pakistan and also the chief of the army. He at that time was a little shaky and he wanted to do something which would endorse his primary position in Pakistan. And he felt that it was a ripe time to take Kashmir by force, the second time. First time they had failed, wanted to do it in 65. So why did he want to do it? India at that time was recovering from our defeat in 1962. We had not yet got our act together. Pandit Nehru had passed away, and they were not very impressed with the diminutive Lal Bahadur Shastri. The United States had given them a huge amount of money, billions of dollars, and military equipment, which had included 400 M48 Patton tanks, Chevy tanks, 4 squadrons of Sabre jets, 1 squadron of 104 starfighters, 2 squadrons of B-57 bombers, heavy artillery, medium artillery, signal equipment. So they had an edge over us in military equipment. They had 2 armored divisions against our own 1 armored division. So he called his corps commanders. They don't have army commanders in Pakistan. They have corps commanders. So he called his corps commanders and he said, is this the right time to take Pakistan, J&K by force? And they said yes. They got their act together with 3 operations. Operation Desert Hawk in the run of Kutch, Operation Gibraltar in J&K, and Operation Grand Slam in J&K. Operation Desert Hawk was a trial. They wanted to see, firstly, take Indian attention away from J&K into a different area. They wanted to test the new weapons they had got from America, and they wanted to test the Indian leadership. Unfortunately, of course, we had nothing on the border with Pakistan and Gujarat, in Rajasthan. We only had police posts. So they overcame all the opposition and they learned the wrong lessons. They thought that India was easy to defeat. So that was the cause of the war. What is sad, what is worse, is that General Eisenhower, who was the president at that time, he made a statement that whatever arms and equipment we are giving to Pakistan will never be used against India or any other country. It is meant for a different purpose. And when Pakistan used this equipment against us, and we protested and brought it to his attention, he did nothing about it. So that is the answer to your question as to why did this war happen. Basically, the aim was to wrest J&K from India once more, and it was at a time chosen by Pakistan when they felt that it was the best time to do whatever they wanted to do.
Is it fair to say that it was the last chance to, get the land in Jammu and Kashmir?
I don't think it is the first or the last chance, because this is part of their psyche. They cannot get over the fact that J&K came to India legally, officially, and militarily. In every sense of the term, it came to India. They can't get over that, and they want to take it by force. But this won't be the first time, it won't be the last time.
So is it also fair to say that at the time of 1965, the military capabilities of Pakistan's were much advanced than India's?
I wouldn't say the military capabilities. The equipment that they had was a shade better than ours. They had 2 armored divisions against our 1. They had the latest pattern tanks. The Navy, they had the best submarines. Yes. And so they were at an advantage over us.
And because we had recently we lost in the 1960s.
Yeah, they felt that we were now fair game to snatch J&K away from us.
Right. But this war broke out as a stalemate at the end, sir. But why does Pakistan celebrate this as a defense victory on every 6th of every year, sir? 6th September of every year.
See, if you look at Kautilya, or you look at all the philosophers of war, they will tell you that victory goes to the country which is able to destroy the war machine of the other side and their ability to continue that war. If you look at 1965, firstly, Pakistan failed in its objective to take J&K by force. Therefore, it's a failure, not a victory, it's a defeat. Secondly, we captured approximately 1,365 square kilometers of Pakistani territory, and they had about 500. So, who had the advantage? India. We destroyed their war machine. The 1st Armored Division had to call off the offensive because we had destroyed over nearly 200 of their tanks. 400 were given, 50% of them we had destroyed. So they had failed in every respect. So how can you say that there are also some people in Pakistan are saying it was a draw. There's no such thing as a draw in war. There's no such thing as a draw in hockey. There's no such a thing as draw in football. We come to a definite conclusion by penalties and whatever. So similarly, in war, there's either victory or defeat. And Pakistan lost in every respect. So therefore, how can you say it was a draw or they were victorious? When we destroyed 50% of their tanks, we captured more territory, and they failed in their endeavor to gain J&K. So it was our victory, not...
But yet they celebrate this as a victory, sir. And why is that? What is the psyche behind it, according to you?
I don't think it is a point for discussion. Everybody knows that Pakistan lies to its teeth. It is the most... It deceives. It is based on deception. Mm-hmm. And it's a basket case today because its whole existence lies on religion. And therefore it is where it is today, and that is where we are today. So I don't think we need to listen to whatever Pakistan says, because it is all... we are, in India, we are open to our faults. We are open, for instance, we lost in 1962 and we had to admit it. Pakistan can never admit their defeat. They can never admit what has happened to them. They will always lie. So I don't think we should... It's a point for discussion. Yeah.
So do you mind me asking about your role in the 1965 war?
I was a company commander in my battalion, the 4th Battalion, the 5th Gurkha Rifles. And I saw a lot of action. Basically, my battalion was raised in 1963 as a consequence of what happened in 1962. Within 6 months, we were holding pickets in J&K. So we had not had any collective training. But in the army, we have individual training of soldiers and collective training of units and formations. So we had no chance to do collective training, and we kept on asking, and finally we were brought down to base for collective training within the battalion itself when Pakistan attacked us with Operation Gibraltar. So that collective training never took place. So now we became the Div Reserve. That means we were now available to the division to fight fires wherever. And 25 Div was a huge division. So we were used everywhere. And my company, Alpha Company, was used again and again. I lost my company twice. I lost my platoon commanders. I lost my best NCOs. I lost a lot of my men because I was used quite often. I saw a lot of death, a lot of injuries. But that's what war is all about. One has to accept it. So I had that experience. And later on, we had to attack a feature because it was the Operation Gibraltar people, the infiltrators had taken a stand, which is rare, because guerrillas never take a stand. They only fight and disappear.
True.
But they took a stand and we attacked them, and I suffered more casualties there. So I saw a lot of action in 65. What is more interesting is what happened after the war. After the war, we were again holding pickets, and I was asked by my brigade commander to make my plans for the capture of a Pakistani post. And I had not enough information about what I had to do, so I needed to go forward. To cut a long story short, it's there in the book. It's in the story called Badmash. Yeah, so it's a story. I mean, the book is, I think, worth reading because it is in the form of stories. Everybody loves a story because history is not everybody's cup of tea. To cut a long story short, I decided to follow a Pakistani patrol into their area to learn more about their post. And when we crossed the line of control without permission, unfortunately, and we found that the Pakistani patrol, which was returning from an ambush, they were very tired. We followed them into their post, and there was no sentry at the sentry post. So we followed them into their post. And we sat down just next to their langar for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And we made our plans as to how we would capture this post. When a Razakar is an irregular soldier from the village, he was cutting grass and he came up and he saw three of us. Now, in India, we wear the olive green uniform, and in Pakistan, they wear the khakis. So he saw three olive green people, meaning Indians, inside the post. He couldn't believe his eyes, and he thought, if there are three here, there must be many more. So he started shouting, we are under attack, we are under attack. So we got up, and the Pakistani patrol, which was having tea, they could not believe their eyes that we were inside their post. So they started firing. And we had in any case crossed the ceasefire line, which was not in order. So, and it was not, we could have fired and killed a lot of them, but that was not our aim. So we went back. They got they got jittered, and they started firing with LMGs, with mortars, and with artillery. All our posts were under artillery fire. So at that time, I did not understand or realize that our Prime Minister, Lal Bahadur Shastri, was in Tashkent negotiating a ceasefire with Pakistan under Russian supervision. And this whole thing broke out. So I had my CEO, I had not taken permission from the CEO because I called him before going, but he didn't take the call. And the brigade commander learned that I had crossed and was very, very upset about it. So this is what happened. Read the story, and you'll find it quite an interesting aspect of the 65 war, after the war.
So you were a badmash at that time, sir?
I end up by saying, who was the real badmash? Was it Ian Cardozo, who crossed the line of control without permission, ceasefire line without permission? Was it the brigade commander who gave me an order which was perhaps not right? Or was it the Pakistani post who got jittered and acted beyond reason? And I end up by saying perhaps it was the badmashi on all three.
The 1965 war to 1962 war, and understand why we suffered the defeat like we did, so against China.
The basic problem is whether it was 47, 48, whether it was 62, whether it was 71, whether it is 99, is that we are in denial. When we got independence and the army chief went to Pandit Nehru asking for additional resources to make the army stronger, he was shouted at by the Prime Minister and told, India has no enemies. It does not require an army. It only requires a police force. So he was in denial that India had any enemies and we did not need an army. So he was in denial that India needed an army. Secondly, when all information was coming to the Prime Minister that China was up to no good on the border, and Sardar Patel in 1950 wrote a 3-page letter to Nehru saying that China was an enemy and not a friend, and listing out exactly what China was up to. He was in denial. He said, no, China is a friend, and Hindi chini bye-bye. So this was he never strengthened the army. He did nothing. Also, Eastern Command perhaps was in denial. It did not support the frontline commanders, Brigadier John Dalvi, and those who were on the ground in Namkachu on the Eastern Front, saying that China will never attack. Mm-hmm. So the military was also partly responsible for what happened in 1962. So it was political and military denial of what was happening on the border that resulted in what happened in the defeat. The third and most important aspect was that the Indian Air Force carried out detailed recce's which proved that the Chinese Air Force were in no position to attack India. Their bases were too far. Their loads to reach us was not possible to reach us and go back. Therefore, our bases were within reach of the Eastern Front and Ladakh. We could have used the Indian Air Force and this defeat would never have taken place. But again, we were in denial. So I think basically we are in denial of facts. We were in denial even in Kargil of what was happening on the border. We were in denial in 1965. In Cham, the corps commander was in denial that there was a big offensive going to take place. So what the lessons that we need to learn is we need to keep an open mind. We need to listen to the formation commanders on the front and
Prepare for the worst, is what you're trying to say?
yes, prepare for the worst.
Because even in 99 war, the leadership of India and Pakistan were trying to negotiate in terms of peace deal, but yet Pakistan attacked. Is what I'm trying to say, that because we should be prepared even though they, forward a hand of peace.
Not only that, in 1999 in Kargil, the government did not allow the Indian army to go across the line of control. So we tied our hands behind our back. They were bothered about that Pakistan was a nuclear country, but we needed to call their bluff.
Yes.
Why did the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif, run to bring to Mr. Clinton to ask him to stop the war? So we give in to our fears. We are in denial of what is happening on the ground. The 1971 war was a different war. It had nothing to do with J&K. The only war with Pakistan which had nothing to do with J&K. Basically, it was an internal problem in Pakistan which expanded into a war because 10 million, they killed 1 million refugees within East Pakistan, forcing 10 million refugees to come into India, causing major problems. They refused to take them back. They refused to listen to reason, forcing us to take action on request of the Bangladeshis, resulting in liberation of East Pakistan and birth of a new country, Bangladesh.
But what was the learning for India? Because it is a conflict-like situation, like it wasn't a similar situation, but it's still a conflict for us as a nation.
I think the learning is you can never trust Pakistan. Although many of our prime ministers go out of their way to extend the hand of friendship to Pakistan, I think the learning is we can never, ever trust Pakistan or China for that matter.
What about bolstering our defense capabilities?
See, we need to understand that in the next war, China and Pakistan will collude against India, and therefore we need to be prepared for the worst. And therefore we should be doing everything to make the army strong and do away with such policies like Agnipath, which is, in my opinion, a disaster which needs to be set right immediately. So there's a lot of learning, not only from our own wars, but from the wars which are being fought today in Ukraine and Russia and Israel and Hamas. The next war is going to be a war which is going to be a different type of war. We have to learn from what is happening in Russia and Ukraine, what's happening in Palestine and Israel, and understand how the next war is going to be fought. We can't fight the next war based on the last war. So, therefore, 71 cannot be compared to 65. It was a different war altogether. But there are lessons to be learned from every war. And there's a saying in the army, the best soldier learns from the experiences of others, the good soldier learns from his own experience, and the bad soldier never learns. So we need to learn from the experiences of others as well as our own experiences.
That's the biggest lessons. So I will come back to a possibility of two-front war later. Before that, the reason I asked you about the lessons for India is because I wanted to highlight lessons that Pakistan didn't learn from the 1965 war in 1972. That there were Pakistani generals who were an Ahmadi general in 1965 by the name of Major General Akhtar Hussain Malik, who was removed. And after his removal is when it's speculated that Pakistan lost its territory or his potential to fight for. Is that true, first of all?
Yes, partly true. Akhtar Hussain Malik was a very good general. He evolved the plan to capture Akhnur. If Akhnur was captured, Jammu would be threatened, and the lifeline to Kargil, to Punch, and to Siachen and J&K, one of the routes would be cut off. Unfortunately, our senior commanders, formation commanders, were in denial that this big offensive was going to take place, despite evidence to say that this is going to happen. As a result, Akhtar Hussain Malik, that is 12 Pakistan Infantry Division, plus 7 Infantry Division, 2 divisions, infantry divisions, against a lone brigade of the Indian Army, whose brigade commander, Brigadier Masters, was killed, and a new brigade commander had come in at the last minute. We had 4 battalions, 5 battalions, against 2 divisions of Pakistan. They had all the core artillery, including heavy artillery. There were 101 guns firing in before the prelude to the offensive to destroy us completely. And they, of course, we fought extremely well. We managed to hold them back. He had planned to reach Akhnur on day 1, but we held him back across the Munawar Tawi till 12 o'clock. Finally, they managed to cross the Munawar Tawi. They advanced, and we lost a lot of men. They had very heavy casualties. And they reached Joria, which is about 12 to 14 kilometers from Akhnur. Now, this is where your remark about Ahmadiyas comes true. Ayub Khan did not want to give credit to this victory which he thought would happen to an Ahmadiyya general, that is Akhtar Hussain Malik, wanted to give it to a Pathan. And that Pathan was Yahya Khan. Now, Yahya Khan was new in the sense he was going to take the offensive, and overconfident, wanted to be briefed, delayed the offensive by more than 24 hours, nearly 48 hours, which allowed India to bolster its defenses and prevent Pakistan from attacking any further. Then we had a very strong-hearted, lion-hearted Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri, who listened to the army, opened a second front in Punjab to draw away Pakistani armor and artillery from the Cham front to protect the Lahore and Sialkot, because we were now going to use our 2 corps in offences against Lahore and Sialkot. So he had no option but to withdraw. That is what saved Akhnur, saved Jammu, and saved the war. So that is what actually happened. It was a stupidity on Ayub Khan to take away the glory from Akhtar Hussain Malik and give it to a Pathan, Yahya Khan, who messed it up.
Do you think history would have been different if Major General Malik would have remained as the general?
It's difficult to say because by this time we were mobilizing our forces. Now the 15 Corps realized very late that what was said earlier was true, what's happening. So we were moving our forces and we would have held them. But it was touch and go.
Is it right to say that Pakistan didn't learn from this mistake of removing the Ahmadi general in the 1971 war as well, when there was another Ahmadi general called Major General Iftikhar Khan Janjua, who was, I think, killed?
No, that's not true. Iftikhar Khan Janjua was also a very good general, but he died in a helicopter crash during the war. So I don't think they had anything, there's nothing political or cultural or caste conscious or whatever about it. He died in an accident.
No, but of course it was an accident against India, and there's no reason for a general to be in a vicinity of a war.
No. Good generals are always right in the vicinity of the war. You take Sagat Singh, one of the finest field commanders this country has ever produced. He was always on the front. You have to be on the front. You got to have your thumb on the on what is actually happening, and that is what made him a great general.
Wow, that's a nice perspective, sir. So, would you mind me asking about your experience in the 1971 conflict?
In 1971, I was in Staff College. And when the war broke out, was about to break out, the course was terminated a month in advance. And we were sent to our units. And I made haste to reach my battalion. And I was just in time. The battalion had already taken part in 2 operations. It did very well. The 4th Battalion, the 5th Gurkhas. It captured a place called Atgram. It captured a place called Ghazipur. But we suffered heavy casualties in both these operations. And the commanding officer, another very, very brave officer, Lieutenant Colonel Arun Harolikar, got a Mahavir Chakra. So the CO, Colonel Harolikar, was getting his act together, getting the companies, trying to reorganize the battalion because we had suffered heavy casualties. By this time, we had lost 3 officers killed and 4 officers wounded out of 18. But Sagat Singh had wrong information that the brigade which was holding Sylhet had moved for the defense of Dhaka, and he wanted someone to go and occupy Sylhet before it was reinforced. Now, he was wanting the Gurkhas to do it, 4 or 5 Gurkhas to do it. So my CO said, is this the only battalion in the corps? Why give me a chance to reorganize my battalion for the next operation? He said, no, you are the persons who can do it. Go immediately. So in war, you can protest up to a point. After that, orders are orders. And we went. And you know, from your readings and your knowledge, that when a battalion is dropped, para-dropped behind enemy lines, or heli-landed behind enemy lines, it has to be reinforced within 48 hours because of heavy casualties, lack of ammunition, lack of food and water, and we were promised to be reinforced within 48 hours. We were never reinforced. We fought for 9 days and 9 nights without reinforcement. But the CO had anticipated this. He had a conference with the officers and the men. I was not there, but I was told. And he said, see, we have been promised that we'll be reinforced within 48 hours, but we don't know whether this will happen. So rather than taking food, ammunition, and clothing, we will take more grenades, we will take more ammunition, and the men and the JSUs and the NCOs agreed. So that is what helped us to continue to fight. But we had no food, we had no water, we were drinking water from muddy ponds, we were scrabbling at abandoned huts for rice, and we survived. What also helped us was the government of India had allowed foreign correspondents to accompany our troops into battle because we had nothing to hide. And a foreign correspondent who do not understand the difference between a battalion and a brigade. And for your listeners, I would like to tell them, a battalion consists of 1,000 men. A brigade consists of 3 battalions. So how many men?
3,000.
3,000. So this correspondent, when he broadcast that the Gurkhas have landed at Sylhet, he said, by mistake, a brigade of Gurkhas has landed at Sylhet. So we were hearing that, and we knew that the Pakis were also listening in. So we pretended to be a brigade. And we managed to fool them. When the surrender finally took place, 2 Pakistani officers came on the 15th of December with white flags saying they want to surrender. The CO, Colonel Harolekar, knowing how thin we were on the ground, said, go back. I have no orders to accept your surrender. So they said, no, can we talk to the brigade commander? Then we understood that we had managed to bluff them that we were a brigade. So the CO said, these are the brigade commander's orders. You come here tomorrow at the same time, the brigade commander will approach higher headquarters whether we can accept your surrender. So the next day, the brigade commander came in a chopper. So the Pakistani brigade commander asked him, who came in this chopper? So our brigade commander, Brigadier Quinn, said, I have come in this chopper. So he said, but aren't you here? He said, no. Said, where are you? I'm 100 kilometers away. Then what is here? He said, it's one lone Gurkha battalion, and that too, half a battalion. There was much murmuring amongst the Pakistanis. They could not believe that an understrength battalion had held them for 9 days and 9 nights. And then we were shocked when 3 brigadiers, 2 full colonels, 170 Pakistani officers, 290 JCOs, and 8,000 troops surrendered to us. By that time, we were 352. So this is what I like to tell you about how my battalion fought in 1971. That is the power of good leadership and good soldiers, Gurkha soldiers. Let me tell you, it's not only Gurkha soldiers which are good.
Definitely.
The Indian soldier is the best in the world. And why is he the best in the world? He's the best in the world because he's best led. Leadership in the Indian army is a privilege given to very few. It is an awesome responsibility. And it is awesome. Why? Because the leader and the led know that many of them will not come back alive. And the soldier knows that his young tigers, the young officers, are right in front, accepting the maximum fire, maximum danger, and they will follow their young tigers to hell and back. And that's what happens in war. And that's what happened in all the wars that we have fought since independence and even before.
So since you spoke about good leadership, would you like to name a few of the top military leaders of India, sir? I know a few that you would name, but you want to add to that list?
Karyappa, Thimaya, Manek Shaw, who's a cutter, who's one of the greatest leaders, military leaders this country has ever produced.
Sagat Singh.
Sagat Singh, the finest field commander this country has ever produced. There are others also, but these are the best. My opinion, I may be wrong.
So the same year, 1971, there was an unfortunate event that you had to go through, sir. There was a landmine that you came across and you lost one of your leg. Would you like to share a little about that, sir?
I don't like to talk much about this because there are people who are trying to say things about me. What I would like to say is that, yes, it happened. I stepped on a mine. I went across after the surrender. The first time I went across, because now we were responsible for these people and their safety, because the Mukti Bahini and the Pakistani civilians were out to take revenge against the Pakistani army. So we were now responsible for their security. So the first time I went across, and I saw a truck full of blankets. So I called the JCO and I said, साहब ये कंबल किसके लिए है? आपके स्टोर के लिए है या जवान के लिए है? जवानों के पास कंबल है साहब, कि आपके जवानों के पास कंबल नहीं है? So I said, नहीं. इसे क्यों? अरे हम सोने के लिए नहीं आया इधर, आपको बर्बाद करने के लिए आए. So he said that. He's okay. And then I said, अगर हमारा जवानों देने के बाद अगर कुछ कंबल रह जाते हैं, can you give it to my officers? इसे साहब आप क्या बात कर रहे हो? अफसर साहबान के पास भी कंबल नहीं है. तो मैंने जवाब दिया, अगर जवानों के पास कंबल नहीं है तो अफसर साहब के पास कंबल कैसे हो सकते हैं? He came to attention because the Pakistani army officer leadership is quite different. They are not close to their troops, whereas we are very close to our troops. So he saluted me and he said, जनाब, अगर हमारी फौज में भारत जैसे अफसर थे, ये दिन हम नहीं देखना था. That is the first time. The second time I went, because the BSF official was getting panicky. He said, there's so many of these people with weapons and they are, I'm feeling threatened. So I said, relax, I'm coming across. So I told my CEO, can I go? He said, Ian, why are you wanting to go? Who is this BSF chap? He's not under our command. We don't know where he's come from. We don't know who he is. And the war is over, now relax. So I said, sir, if he opens fire, there'll be an international incident. Let me go. So against his better sense, I went and I stepped on a mine and my leg blew off. And a Mukti Bahini person who was there, he had the guts. He must have been a powerful person. I don't remember very clearly what happened, but he jumped into the minefield, lifted me up and took me out of the minefield and took me to my brigade, to the battalion headquarters, and I apologized to the CEO. So what had happened was, before the surrender, Pakistani artillery had destroyed our MI room. MI room is the medical facilities of so there was no medicines available. There was no instruments to cut my leg off or whatever. So my leg was looking very disgusting. It was hanging, a boot with a foot in it. So I used the khukri to just... people have made a big story about this. I didn't chop off my leg. It was nothing heroic about it. It was just that something had to be done. But people have made big stories about it. That's what's very embarrassing. So I don't like to talk about this, but because there are people who are trying to denigrate me in this matter, and it's uncomfortable.
So what's more inspiring about this story is not that you cut your leg, but that you continue to serve in the Indian Armed Forces and continue to command a brigade, continue to run marathons even after such an adversity. So that is what I want to talk about.
So that is what I also would like to talk about, in the sense that when we were in hospital, we were told that you cannot return to your troops. Battle casualties, disabled battle casualties who are minus a limb, cannot go back to their troops. So I joined the army, and I was very, very happy with the troops I was serving with, the Gurkhas, and I could not imagine life in uniform away from my battalion and my troops. But I did not know what I could do to change this order. Right from World War I, no Indian Army officer who was disabled in war was allowed to return to his troops. None of them were promoted, except 2 were promoted to brigadier's rank, but then only on the staff. I was not prepared to accept this, but I had no idea as to what I would do to remedy this issue, this problem. God was good. Things happened in a way. I only decided that I must keep myself physically fit to accept any challenge that comes my way. I took part in the physical proficiency test. I did better than 7 officers in the 2-mile run. I left 7 officers with 2 legs behind. Wow. And the officer who was running the test was very happy. He wrote a report about me, which went to, I was in military operations then, and General Vaidya, the DMO, said, there's a good report about you. When you've done a BPT test, you didn't have to do it. I said, yes, sir, I need to prove myself. He says, prove what? That I can command troops. He says, which battalion have you commanded? So I said, sir, I haven't commanded a battalion. So he said, you have not commanded a battalion? Don't you want to command a battalion? I said, yes, I do. So he said, you apply. I said, the rules don't permit. He said, you apply. I will support you. He supported me, took me to the vice chief. And the vice chief said, send him with me to J&K. So I went with him to J&K. Again, God was good. I climbed a feature where it was being commanded by a friend of mine. I said, let me go and have breakfast with him. I didn't realize that I was doing something great. I climbed this hill. I had breakfast with him. And the vice chief landed in a chopper. And he said, how have you come here? Thinking that because I'm NDA, I have an Air Force friend who managed to give me a chopper to... So I didn't understand. I said, sir, I climbed. He says, you can climb. I said, sir, what I cannot do lies in the minds of my senior officers. He says, don't be impertinent. But it registered in his mind. He went to the chief. And the chief was General Rainer. He had lost an eye in war. So, and he would never have become the chief if that order had been applied to him. So he said, send Cardozo with me to Ladakh. I went. He saw me perform over there. When he came back, he called for my file and he said, yes, give him a battalion and other war-disabled officers who are not taking shelter of their wounds. So that is how I got a battalion. Others got the battalion. And then when I was due for promotion to brigadier's rank, they were not giving me command of a brigade. I wrote to the chief. Again, God and luck favored me. The chief at that time was the div commander under whom I fought when I lost my leg, General K.B.K. Rao. And he said, if you can command a battalion in peace and war, what is the problem? So they said, there's no precedence. So he said, create one. And that's how I got a brigade. I was the first person to be approved for command of a battalion, command of a brigade. And promotion has opened up in the Indian Army right to the top of battle casualty today. 3 battle casualties, one who lost 2 legs, became army commanders, which is 1 rank below the chief. And we are waiting for the day when a disabled officer will become the chief of the Indian Army.
Wow, sir. That's so inspiring to hear.
So this is what I would like to be known
Exactly.
for.
That's what matters, what the legacy that you leave behind for yourself. Sir, because you told me the story, I would want to understand your mental strength. How did you manage to make your mind so strong that even after adversity, you look through the light? Because that is a problem in today's time. Young adults like me, the youth, we give up really easily. But looking at your example, your story, it's inspiring to know that it is important to have the mental strength at the end of the day. Can you speak a little about that, please, sir?
Okay. I have told you about 2 books of mine, which, since you are in this business, to get those books. One is on the 1971 war, Stories of Grit and Glory. It has been reprinted 3 times within a year and a half of its publication. Therefore, there must be something good in it.
Definitely, sir.
Then I've written about the 65 war. But the issue you raised just now is tackled in my book called Beyond Fear.
Beyond Fear.
Also available on Amazon. It tells you about army officers and army officers' wives and mothers and doctors and people in uniform, women in uniform. Out of 13 stories, 4 are about women in uniform, mothers and wives. And we do what we do. The Indian soldier, the Indian officer, the JSU and the NCO and the Jawan, do what they do because of their support they get from the home. It is the legacy, the tradition, the culture of this country where the woman is the strength of the man. It is because of them we are able to do what we have to do. Support of our wives. My own wife has supported me right through. And it is they who help us to conquer fear. Fear is common to every man. Even Simon Shaw has said, anyone who says he's not afraid is either a liar or a Gurkha. Because Gurkhas are fearless. So, do think about getting that book also and reading it, Beyond Fear. 13 stories which tell you about army officers, women officers, medical officers, mothers, wives who have supported their husbands, their sons, their fathers, and make us strong and able to continue to do what we have to do in defense of the country.
So I would change this conversation in terms of India's capabilities at the moment, sir. We've been seeing a lot of indigenization of our military. Since you've been a war veteran and the army officer for a long time, you must be studying the military today and in the time when you were a part of the armed forces. Are you seeing some positive changes such as theaterization, bringing of the CDS, DMA, or even Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense? What are your thoughts on these subjects, sir? That are we going towards the right steps in order to improve our military forces?
Yes and no. Yes, theaterization, in my opinion, is a step in the right direction. It must be implemented fully, without further delay, because it ensures jointmanship between the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. If we won the 71 war, it was because of the synergy between the armed forces and the government.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Does that exist today? You can please ask yourself and answer that question.
Not completely.
Number 2, jointmanship between the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. So in this respect, we have progressed somewhat. If the glass is half full, it is also half empty. We need to go forward. The next war, there's going to be definite collusion between Pakistan and China. We must prepare for the worst. Both Pakistan and China, particularly China, needs to understand that we will give them a bloody nose if they dare to declare war on us.
Absolutely.
They will have to pay the price which is unacceptable. Wherever they are today in today's world, they will come down. Therefore, the problem is India only reacts to situations. We need to be proactive. We need to think about the next war and how we will conduct it on both fronts. I have retired 30 years ago, so I'm in no position to tell you whether we are. But I would like to think that yes, our military officers, our senior commanders are on the ball. They know what is happening. They know what is to be done. The issue is the government also on the ball. Are we prepared to take China head on? I am not a politician. I am a soldier. But wars are caused by politicians, complicated by bureaucrats, and fought by soldiers. So, what we need to do is in the realm of politics. I am not in a situation to answer. But as a soldier, I am quite clear that we should be strong to give anyone who makes the mistake of taking us for granted a bloody nose.
Absolutely. Since when we speak about a war, it's not just the armed forces that are fighting the war. It is also the civil society. Is there a right balance and partnership of the civils and military partnership at the moment, or is there a gap that you see?
In my opinion, the Indian citizen does not know anything about war, and all my writings are focused on bringing the armed forces closer to the man in the street. Why? Because The Indian citizen has a stake in the security of this country, and therefore he needs to have a voice, and he cannot have that voice unless he has knowledge, and therefore that he needs to know more about war, why wars are fought, what happens at the end of a war, what needs to be done to ensure that we are strong enough that nobody has the guts to take us for granted and interfere with our development. We need to be strong. As General K.V.K. Rao says, prepare or perish. So, yes, we are in the right direction. The present Prime Minister is using all that he has to make us independent, not dependent on any other country, because if a country gives us a weapon, they can use methods to make sure that that weapon becomes unusable. So we need to have our own weapons. But I just feel that it should proceed a little faster.
So the types of war has changed. The duration of war has also changed. So when we speak about a two-front war against China and Pakistan, what are the lessons can we learn from the ongoing wars in Russia, Ukraine, as well as Israel and Palestine? That one thing that I find out is that it's more about a longer period of a war. It's not how can a country sustain a longer war, especially on two fronts, in all the three different fronts. Army, Navy, and Air Force.
It is true. There is a saying that we should not fight the next war based on the last war. So I mentioned earlier that the next war is going to be a different type of war altogether. So therefore, we need to think about how we will conduct that war. And it has to be offensive. We should not only be reacting to what the enemy is doing. We should have plans to do and not have government telling us you can't cross the line of control, you can't do this, you can't do that. Are we trying to win brownie points with the West? We need to ensure the security of India, and for that we need to have a strategy, we need to have a vision, we need to have a strategy, we need to have an infrastructure, we need to have a plan, we need to have an aim, we need to have objectives.
So do you appreciate the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's efforts on national security at the moment?
Yes, he is doing his bit to ensure, but it is not only the Prime Minister. It is not the Prime Minister alone who's going to fight the next war. It is the government, it is the bureaucracy, it is the armed forces, it is the people of India. We all need to get together, understand the threats, and understand what we need to do to make sure that the next war is an outright victory. So, it depends on each one of us. Each one of us has a duty to ensure the security of India.
I would end our conversation on 2-3 very timely questions, and I know you have a quick answer to that as well. Sir, it is said that wars are never an answer. You spoke about in a book as well that a war never solves a problem. It only changes another time. Of course, for example, all the wars that we fought against Pakistan has been a reason. There's been a reason for it in eventuality.
There's a saying that wars are fought by people who don't know each other and don't hate each other, but caused by people who know each other but hate each other. And after the war is over, everything comes back to normal. People shake hands. But what about all the people who have died in that war? Yes. What has the war resolved? I'm also into poetry, and I've written a poem about this. I've written a story about this in 1965. The last story is called...
you mentioned it to me earlier. It's called Tryst of Fate.
It's about two families, one Pakistani and Indian military families, who do a staff college together in Australia and who end up fighting each other. It's a good story. I think it could be made into a good film also. But do read that story. And I hope the listeners, because I write to bring, as I said before, the armed forces closer to the man in the street. But how is that going to happen if he doesn't read the book and the stories? So, I hope your readers, the 65 war, next year is going to be the 60th anniversary. I would like them to read this book, read the stories, and understand what war is all about. And war is not a solution to any problem, but unless we are prepared, we are asking for trouble.
Beautiful, sir. So you have been in this beautiful planet for the almost 9 decades, sir. Where do you think the humanity is going at the moment, sir? Because we see a lot of conflicts, we see a lot of disruption, see the technological advancement. What is your lesson of your 8 to 9 decades to a young person who's living in this beautiful planet now?
Destiny of the world, destiny of India, destiny of all of us, I believe, is a matter of choice. It is not a matter of chance. And therefore, I feel leadership is what is important. Political leadership, military leadership, and leadership in every human endeavor. Every one of us is called upon to exercise leadership, whether you're a bus conductor who's to ensure that women get seats, that seats meant for the disabled are not taken by somebody else. The bus stops at the right place at the right time. So he's exhibiting leadership. Mothers and fathers are leaders. Every one of us has an opportunity to lead.
Absolutely.
So, but where is the world heading? What is the leadership problem in America? In all the countries of the world, we're heading for disaster. There is a saying also, an army of sheep led by a lion will do far better than an army of lions
led by a sheep.
Led by a sheep.
Wow.
There are 3 things here. All begin with the letter L. Love. You might say, what is this? How do you know about love? It is on the altar of love that men and women in uniform put their lives in the line of fire and disappear in the smoke and fire of battle. Love of country, love of the people of India, love for the regiment, love for adventure, love for our custom and traditions. It is love, it is the basic word which can change the shape of the world.
Wow.
And second, L is life. Life is a gift from God. And nobody can appreciate the gift of life better than a soldier. Why? Because he lives in the shadow of death. And when he comes out alive, it's a great gift of God. And yet, this very same soldier, who values life above everything else, is prepared to sacrifice that life for his country.
For his love.
Love of country. And the third is leadership. I expressed this earlier also. The leadership is something given to army officers, not given to anybody else. And it is because he knows that he and the men he commands, many of them won't come back alive. And because of this, the Indian soldier, the best in the world, followed their young officers to hell and back. And when that officer dies, they take his place to ensure the objective is captured and whatever has to be done is done. So leadership, love, life, and leadership. In the 1971 war, my battalion, the 4th Battalion, the 5th Gurkhas, we entered the war with 18 officers. Only 7 survived in the 13-day war. 4 got killed and 7 got wounded. So, this is what the armed forces is all about. This is what I write about. This is what I want the country to know and to understand, that every Indian citizen has a stake in the security of India, and we all have a duty to perform to ensure that we are safe. Let's not only blame the politician or the prime minister or the chief or whoever. All of us have a responsibility and are accountable for how we conduct ourselves in whatever our calling is. We have to do our best to ensure that what we do ultimately is for the good of India.
Beautifully said, sir. And I really appreciate you mentioning this on the podcast. I would end our conversation on a very difficult question, which is a personal question to you, sir. Since this podcast is called Diary of a Publisher, I make sure to ask all my guests one question about a book that changed the way the guest sees the life. So if there's a one book that you wish you would have read earlier in life, which book would that be, sir? You mentioned about a lot of your books, different books on wars, poetry. But if there was one single book that Ian Cardozo would have read earlier, wish that I would have read earlier this in life to understand life better, which book would that be?
That book is a book called Reach for the Sky. It's a book about a British Royal Air Force officer who lost both his legs in an accident. And World War II was on. He decided to continue to fly Spitfires. And when the Air Force chief came to his airfield, he took up a Spitfire and beat up the aerodrome. You know what beating up means? He did acrobatics over the airfield. So the air chief said, who's that madman and what is he trying to prove? So the station commander said, he's Douglas Bader, sir. He's trying to prove that he can fly. He said, I can see that. Let him fly. Douglas Bader went on to become an air ace. He shot down 21 German fighters and then got shot down over Germany. And in exiting from his cockpit, both his wooden legs got caught in the cockpit and he landed on his stumps and he got hurt. The Germans were ecstatic. They had captured an air ace and the newspapers were headlines. And UK was informed, we have Douglas Bader, he is our prisoner. And he asked Douglas Bader, what can we do for you? He says, I want my legs. Now, both in UK and in India, I also, when we get a leg from the Artificial Limb Center, we get a reserve leg in case this happens. So his reserve legs were in the UK.
Achha.
So UK and Germany got together and they allowed a British Dakota to fly into Germany and drop Douglas Bader's legs near the hospital. So Douglas Bader got his legs. What did Douglas Bader do? It was winter, it was snowing. They gave him his legs. At night, he escaped. How far could he go in the snow with 2 wooden legs? They caught him. They brought him back. They put him on the first floor and they took away his legs. What did Douglas Bader do? Douglas Bader, at night, went from bed to bed in that ward, stripped the beds of the bed sheets, made it into a rope, tied it to one of the beds, got out of the window, and escaped once again without his legs. How far could he go? He was caught. And he was put in a higher security prison in Germany. It just told me that nothing can stop you provided you have an aim, and that aim is right. It is a good aim, and nothing can stop you if your dreams are achievable. And that is what helped me to do what I did, to ensure I got a battalion, a brigade, and others too, and open up promotion for the Indian Army right to the top. That's the book.
Wow.
If you ask me which is the book I have written, which I would like people to read, it is a book called Kartus Sab.
Kartu Saab.
That's what my Gurkhas call me. Cardozo is not a very easy to pronounce. So it's my autobiography. I was asked about 15, 20 years ago to write the book. I never wrote it because we don't talk about ourselves. But a couple of things happened which convinced me that the Indian citizen knows nothing about the armed forces, and I need to write my own story to let them know it is not about my story, it is about the story of every Indian Army officer, how he lives and how he overcomes all obstacles. The story of the title of the book is Kartus Sab.
Kartu Saab. Wow, sir. What a conversation this has been with you. I would take this opportunity to salute you and thank you for your service, of your long service in the Indian Army. And this conversation has been really inspiring for me and informative at the same time. And I'm sure it's been for the audience as well.
Please don't salute me. Salute the Indian Army for what it does for the country. Army, Navy, Air Force. The Indian Armed Forces are what is holding this country. You should salute.
Thank you so much, sir, for this beautiful conversation. We at TOAP are working really hard to take this podcast to the next level. Our guests are going to get even better, our production quality is going to get even better, and hopefully, I'm going to get even better too. Most importantly, we are committed to being consistent and continue to do what we love the most. Until then, keep reimagining yourself and know that the power of change lies within you. Jai Hind.